that would be the end of the United States as a power. The world would revolt. This is no joke. The Israelis and the American regime, they can't do that and get away with it. And it's very clear that the very fact that they raise these issues, that these are actually being discussed, show how sinister these regimes are. It shows how sinister the EU is, how sinister the United States is, how evil they are. So even by making such discussions or having such discussions in public, they're showing their true colors. But Iran is not going to relent. What Iran can do to them is equal to hundreds of nuclear weapons. This is not about the Strait of Hormuz, Nima. This is about all oil and gas from West Asia and the Caucasus. Gone. Everything. Zero. And this is not about closing, it's not about this is about destroying assets, whether it's tankers or ships or infrastructure. If you're an aggressor, if you are assisting an aggressor, if you are part of an aggression, you will pay the ultimate price. And these regimes do not have power. And Iran is not Yemen. What Iran can do to them is infinitely greater than what Yemen can do. And all these glass palaces are right in front of Iran. The Persian Gulf is not wide, and Iran has capabilities, and Iran is ready as we speak. Iran is prepared for an attack now. Iran does not look at Trump's statements where he speaks of giving 2 weeks or 60 days or 2 days or 10 days. Trump is a thug to the Iranians. He is a thug. And anything that he says is unreliable, because we saw how he lies and how deceptive he is and how self-contradictory he is. And therefore, the Iranians are prepared as we speak. So if I was in Qatar, I would be, I would be leaving, actually. If I was living in any of these countries, I'd be seeking a way out now. But while I'm seeking a ship or a plane or getting my car prepared to rush across the Arabian Peninsula to get out, I would be calling people in Washington and telling them that, exactly what's going to happen. And again, this is not just Iran. Iraq will take what is theirs, and the Yemenis will take what is theirs. It's going to be hell on earth for the Western camp.
Two important points. One is the Strait of Hormuz. The other one is Bab al-Mandab in the Red Sea. In my opinion, Iran is capable of just blocking these two important points in the trade of international trade of oil and
Nima, can I just say something?
Go ahead.
The Strait of Hormuz won't even be important if there is no oil being pumped out of the ground, if there is no gas being pumped out of the ground, if there are no tankers to take that oil or any ships to take that gas. Closing the Strait of Hormuz is irrelevant. And this will be a long-term change. And Iran doesn't have to do anything about Bab al-Mandab. Yemen will do it. And the Americans won't be able to do anything about it because their economy will be in free fall. And they'll be busy with Iran too. And when Iraq and the Popular Mobilization Forces deal with the Americans and their assets, and the oil exports where they're not being paid, the Americans keep the money in their banks. Iraqis can shut down the oil until the Americans surrender their money. And the Iraqis can take their land back, what was historically theirs in the South. There's nothing the Americans can do about that anymore. The world has changed. So you'll see a different map, and you'll see new regimes or new governments or new states emerging in the years to come. And there will be no American presence. It will be ugly. It will be full of death and destruction and misery across the world. And that I don't want to see. You'll see tens of millions, if not more, on the move across the world. When economies collapse, they'll be searching for somewhere to go. And where did they go historically? They go to Europe. They go to North America. So if they're worried about refugees now, the flood is coming. A huge flood is coming up, like a biblical flood is coming their way. So again, this is, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see people live in misery. But if anything does happen, I have no doubt that in Washington, these warmongers who have their talk shows, or who are in the Senate, or who are in the House, or who are in government, people will be seeking them out and saying, who are these guys? Who are these Zionists and neocons that destroyed our world? And the same will be true across Europe. And they will only have themselves to blame. They will have brought it upon themselves.
Donald Trump talked to Vladimir Putin in the call. Vladimir Putin suggested to mediate between Iran and the United States. What we've learned so far, correct me if I'm wrong, the Iranian officials don't believe what the United States is talking about. They don't mean anything to the Iranian officials, but there has to be something else coming in, some other factors coming in, China, Russia, I don't know, whoever that way, international community, as you've mentioned. There has to be something else coming into the equation to make them responsible for what they're doing. How does Iran see that?
Since I'm not in government, sorry, I can't really say. But Russia could be, or China could be, an off-ramp for the Americans, so that they could claim that they had some sort of success somehow, and that this was resolved, and what they had, Trump, all this was the plan all along, and the art of the deal, and that sort of nonsense. But at the end of the day, Iran is not going to give up its sovereign rights. It's not going to give up nuclear enrichment. And it's not going to have any consortium or anything like that. That's never been on the table. That's not something Iran will accept. Iran is willing to accept a deal, definitely. But of course, with this Trump regime that is so despicable and dishonest and deceptive and disgusting, threatening Iran's leaders, something. And it's interesting how Western media is not outraged. You can threaten heads of states and religious leaders nowadays, and all these liberal Western journalists and broadcasters, they'll support it, just like they supported the ongoing Holocaust and the ongoing starvation. And we should always remember, as we're speaking, this Holocaust in Gaza continues, the genocide continues, the starvations continues, and these people are all a part of it. In fact, what we are witnessing is how, as Western mainstream media and Western journalists and Western elites are desperately trying to demonize Iran in order to whitewash the Israeli regime, in order to have people forget the fact that they've been carrying out a Holocaust worse than Hitler, or worse than the monsters of the 19th and 20th centuries, because they're doing it in front of our eyes. They've been doing it in front of the eyes of the world. And past, genocides, whether in World War II or elsewhere, were not done in front of the cameras, and they were not justified in front of the cameras. They were hidden. We only learned about them, whether in Africa or in Asia, the British Empire, the French Empire, the Italians, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Europeans, Belgium. We only learned about these things later on in history books. But these people do it in front of everyone. So what they're desperately trying to do is to demonize Iran right now, just like we saw with this sinister guy, Piers Morgan. That the objective is to draw attention away from these crimes and from their complicity the fact that they're complicit in these crimes, and to demonize Iran. But it's not working. It's not working because people know what Israel is, and they know that they started the attack. So it's not going to work. So what the only solution for the United States now is to find an off ramp. And for Iran, ordinary negotiations cannot be conducted like before. We have to have real assurances that these disgusting leaders in the West don't stab us in the back again. And we have to have assurances about Gaza and about Lebanon and about an end to the hostilities right now can only come about under circumstances where the Iranians feel that Trump will not be able to wake up the next day and do something else. Although, if I don't think Trump is going to last as the president. If he strikes Iran, I think his presidency is over and he will not serve his term. I think they'll remove him, or he'll be forced to step down much more swiftly than people think. But even if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to last, because he's destroyed the United States. He's done more harm to the regime in Washington than even Biden has done, and that's saying a lot.
I don't know if you watched the video from Gaza, that the people who are under starvation, the situation is so dire in Gaza that Israelis attacked them by a tank. They fired them by a tank. It's unbelievable. You look at the scene; it's unbelievable what's going on there.
Every day, Nima. Every day they're doing it, and now they're trying to prevent people from having access to the internet so that it won't be easily reported to the outside world. And Western media is trying to shift away from Gaza, even though they've already tried to ignore it as much as possible, but they're trying to ignore it even more at a time when the Israelis are carrying out the atrocities that they haven't done before. I mean, they've done everything in the past. They've pulled out the plug for incubators and murdered children and infants. These are the monsters that we're dealing with. But now they're just, they go and put aid in front of them, the Americans, and they step back and let the Israeli regime gun down people every day. They're hiding and they're, bending over and crawling to get a bag of flour, and then during the process, a number of them die. They're killed. That's how it is every day. And these sinister monsters in the Western media, they don't say anything about it. They don't even tweet about it. I mean, these journalists, some of them have millions of followers. Some of them have hundreds of thousands of followers. Some of them have tens of thousands of followers. They won't put up a single image of these, because for them, it's the money, it's the influence, it's the access that's important. They have no morality. They have no shame. They're no better than the Zionist killers that are actually carrying out these murders, because they're the ones who are allowing it to happen. They're the ones who are facilitating these crimes. And they're now using Iran and demonizing Iran to help facilitate those crimes. But it's not working. And what they're doing is, across the world, people are looking at them with disgust. In their own countries, people are looking and they're revolting. They're revolting against this. You saw Ted Cruz, humiliated by Tucker Carlson, and you see the debate widening about Zionism and about the Israeli regime and Christianity, and how they've deceived so many people in America and in the United States with this, cult of Zionist Christianity, which believes that Christ is a supporter of Holocaust. It's sort of like it's the same thing as saying Christ supported Hitler. There's no difference between saying Christ supported Hitler than Christ supported the Zionist Holocaust. But this is what happened in the 18th and 19th century in the United States. Many, overwhelmingly in the South, especially of the United States, pastors and Christian
preachers,
they would justify slavery by using the Bible, interpreting it in the way in which benefited them. And that is exactly what we're seeing today. So these genocidal monsters, they, just like in the past, they were presenting slavery as something acceptable to Christianity, as if Jesus would accept what they were doing to the slaves in the South. And now it's the same thing. It's the same model. These cultists, these Christian Zionist cultists, what they do is basically they're saying, yes, Christ supports the slaughter of these kids, gunning them down, shooting in the head, starving them. But real Christians and Muslims like ourselves who believe in Christ, Muslims all revere Christ. For us, it's the most disgusting and anti-Christian and anti-Christ sentiments possible, or beliefs possible.
I remember when the Zaporozhye power plant, nuclear power plant, was attacked by Ukrainians, and they were trying to say that it was Russia that is destroying the power plant while it was under the control of Russians. They were all over the mainstream media. They were talking about attacking nuclear power plants. Right now, Israel is just crossing each and every red line in these attacks on Iran. And nobody in the mainstream media, in the international community, is talking about it. Europeans, none. They're not. How ridiculous, Professor Marandi, is becoming these international communities, organizations. It seems as time goes by, the reality of these organizations become more clear to the people, that they're not capable of doing anything.
The thing is, in my opinion, that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West thought we've reached the end of the world. And sadly, so did many intellectuals across the world. They came to that conclusion. And so Western narratives and discourse, and the discourse coming from elites and the powerful in the West became very influential across the world. So in our own country, in Iran, many liberals began to believe that the West is somehow morally superior and technologically and inherently superior, more creative, and that sort of nonsense that we hear always repeated. That after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the victory of the United States over Saddam Hussein in Kuwait, which the ghosts of Vietnam were swept away, and so it was the unipolar moment. It was the United States was the hyperpower, and many people believed, or whether they liked it or not, that this was it. You had to obey the West, you had to be obedient to the West, and many believed that the West was indeed morally and superior in every way possible. And the history, the 500 years of history of the Western Empire, colonization, the massacres, and the genocides in Latin America, across Africa, in the Americas, across Asia, Southeast Asia, and elsewhere, all of that was sort of swept away. It disappeared from the narrative. But now, over the past few years, people are waking up, and it's intense, the anger and hatred for the Western Empire, and it is intensifying inside the West as well, because they see that these people treat them with contempt, just like they treat the rest of us with contempt. And this is changing so fast. And since these monsters, they've been overstretched, and they've been waging endless wars, and they've been trying to accumulate as much wealth as possible for themselves from their own societies and from other societies. They've ruined their opportunity to keep control of the world. They had strong control for a couple of decades, but now it's just crumbling. And it seems like every stupid act that they carry out, every foolish policy that they pursue, they're intensifying the collapse of their empire. The only sad thing is that people are dying as a result. People are being slaughtered, massacred, and Western media tries to justify it or glorify it or hide it in any way or form or possible. But people are seeing right through it. It doesn't work. Carrying out aggression on Iran no matter how you frame it and you lie about it, you can't hide the fact that Tulsi Gabbard said that Iran is not pursuing a nuclear weapon. And the fact that Tulsi Gabbard suddenly flips just hours ago only discredits her and the whole political establishment. It just shows that it's just utterly corrupt and that it's not redeemable. It's only making it worse for themselves. So I think that the days ahead and the weeks ahead may be tough, very tough, and the United States may attack tonight or today or tomorrow, but they will not win, and this will redraw the map across the region, and it will bring down the global economy if he does so, and the world will not be blaming Iran, which is the victim. It will be blaming Netanyahu and Trump, Zionism, and the neocons.
You mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, but what's going on in the movement that support Donald Trump, MAGA movement, is something beyond than Tulsi Gabbard. They're not happy with the situation. They didn't want any sort of war anywhere, specifically in the Middle East, because they had this sort of background of the Iraq war, Afghanistan war. They know what would that happen. What that means a lot of Americans being killed in the process of the war. And Iran is not Iraq and Afghanistan. I think everybody knows that by now.
Iran is not Vietnam. Iran is far, far more dangerous for the United States if it attacks Iran, for the reasons I told you. This region is very vulnerable. And also, Nima, it's not just about Americans dying. It's about the fact that the United States has destroyed its own middle class, and so has Europe. And while the elites are living it up, and for them life is good, for ordinary Americans, that's not the case. This is not the United States of 30, 40 years ago. This is not the Europe of the past. And the more they push these wars, regardless of, let's say they don't even attack Iran, but the more they push these conflicts, whether in Ukraine or Iran or with China, the worse things are going to get for the majority in their own countries. This is going downhill for them. But as I said, I think for the third, fourth time, as I've already said 3 or 4 times, an attack on Iran will be a catalyst like no catalyst that we've seen before. It will bring a collapse to the global economy. And just trying to imagine what the world will look like after that is very difficult. It will be dark.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Marandi, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Thank you, Nima. It's always a pleasure, always an honor. And thank you very much for inviting me.